Good evening, Pat Stevens, AMGT 402. This is presentation 2, and for our assignment with this presentation, it was a discussion of autonomous or driverless vehicles. We were supposed to research some of the different tracks that are out there and in use. For my choice, I'm actually focusing on DARPA and their robotics competition. In the United States, this started in 2004, and as long as each team had one American, they could enter as a team. So there were international components to this team as well. But before we talk about that some more, I want to roll the clock back a little bit to 1977. At that point, Japan was already deeply interested in putting together an autonomous vehicle, and they had started hosting competitions already at that point in time. Moving a little bit forward, we also had competitions in Italy, known as the Argo Project, and then we also had the European Union had put together the Prometheus Project. 2004, DARPA held their first competition. It started outside of Barstow, California, ran 150 miles through the Mojave Desert, and it ended just on the inside of the Nevada border at the town of Primm. Over this course, the vehicles were not to be driven by any human contact whatsoever. So the vehicles had to be set up with all of their own robotics, all of their own self-steering mechanisms. So a lot of them were using 3D camera imaging as well to see how things would work out. That first year, Oshkosh company, defense company, they were teamed up with Carnegie Mellon, and they put together a vehicle. It was called Terramax. It was a 30,000-pound vehicle, and it was also based on the MVT-R series that Oshkosh made. That first year, it made it a couple of miles, and then it actually was reduced to sitting there idling because a tumbleweed had moved into its path and the truck didn't know what to do. So instead of driving over potentially injuring anyone, the truck just actually sat there and idled. That first year, the only competitor that made it further than the Terramax was a modified Humvee, and that vehicle made it about 8 or 9 miles into the course before it got hung up on a rock while it was working a very tight switchback. Moved to 2005, there were over 12 teams that had entered, and with the next year in improved technology, they wound up with 5 completers out of that competition, which was actually pretty good. The Terramax did complete the course, and it did go, it took 2 days to get through the course. But one of the things that they had done when they changed the course for the second year, the roads were a little bit wider. There weren't as many turns and switchbacks. So it, in theory, would have been a little bit of an easier course. Oshkosh, the Terramax truck, did make it through there. And that was a huge leap in improvement from the year before. One of the things that it did take some time, but one of the things it was able to do was negotiate through a very, very narrow pass, and it was called a bottleneck pass. Now, the truck did take its time going through there, but it was able to successfully negotiate the bottleneck pass, and it did cross the finish line. So in 2007, they actually moved the competition to what they call the Urban Challenge. They moved it over to an abandoned Air Force base over in California, and what they did is they were now running these driverless vehicles through mocked up towns to see if they'd be able to negotiate the tight turns and just in general make it through the course. One of the reasons for this competition was to develop a driverless vehicle system. What they're thinking is being able to have a convoy of vehicles run through a war zone and remove the human drivers out of the convoy. In the Second Iraq War, the greatest number of casualties for the United States was not the frontline troops, but it was actually coming from the supply train. And because there wasn't a lot of protection and the rampant use of IEDs, improvised explosive devices, a lot of the drivers were getting hurt, killed, or captured. So this became an immediate concern. What DARPA wanted to do was find some proven technology, and even though it would take years to develop, they wanted to be able to pull the drivers out of the supply trains to cut down on that really critical exposure, and plus being able to deliver supplies without having the human element in transit would be a big saver for casualties. The Army actually wants to start deploying a driverless convoy system by 2025. I know each year as DARPA continues to host the driverless vehicle competitions, the complexity is getting higher, the completion rate is getting better, the speed is actually improving as well. So I would believe that at the rate things are going, they will be on track to go ahead and employ the a driverless convoy system by 2025, which is their target date. And of course, this is major because, again, when you look at the Iraqi conflict, the vast majority of our wounded were actually coming through from the supply trains. So with that in mind, that was the goal of DARPA. Now, as you look forward today in some of the other autonomous vehicles that they're still working on right now, one of the big issues they're having is legislating how things are going to work and what sort of safety systems you still need to have in place. Now, we've already had a couple of fatalities from people that actually let their driverless vehicles enter into the driverless mode, and they literally were just riding. I know one of the first Teslas out there that had basically the not cruise control, but basically the driverless vehicle control. One of the first guys actually was killed in an accident because he had issues, didn't maintain control, and wound up striking a tractor trailer. So it's kind of interesting to see where things started in the U.S., and you can certainly see where we're headed with it now. One of the other items of interest with Foxconn coming to Racine County here in Wisconsin, one of the things that Foxconn employers were asking for was, where are the driverless vehicle or where are the autonomous lanes? So actually Wisconsin DOT is working to put that into reality because they see a lot of driverless vehicles going from Mitchell International Airport down to Racine County, bringing people in and out. I look forward to your comments. Thank you very much.